Hello and welcome to the Smart Connections podcast and the Talk the Path podcast. My name is Anna Sanderlin. I am a warm-line facilitator for the University of Memphis Smart Center. The University of Memphis School of Social Work Smart Research, Training, and Treatment Center aims to provide evidence-based interventions for school-based mental health programming, increase access for school-based behavioral health programming in underserved areas, offer training on best practices in telebehavioral health, develop opportunities to research the use of technology in practice, and provide direct services to the state's most vulnerable populations. You can call the Smart Center at 901-678-1636. The University of Memphis Smart Center, in conjunction with the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, would like to present the Pathways to Behavioral Health Careers Project. The goals of the Pathways Project are to provide education and information on the various career opportunities in the field of behavioral health through presentations, increase interest in students in the field of behavioral health, provide opportunities for guidance with information regarding college, university programming that result in degrees for professions in the field of behavioral health, connect students with students in behavioral health programs and professionals in the field for further research. This podcast will feature students and professionals in the field to give a clear picture of the daily duties of these roles and how they help support their communities.
I'm Leslie Brassfield. I'm a registered nurse, and my title is Coordinated School Health Director at Manchester City Schools. We're a small district in Middle Tennessee, grades K through 8, and I am also a registered nurse. That's my profession by trade. I've been working in the school setting for about 26 years, and I'm part of the student services team here in our district, and happy to be part of this therapy dog team.
Thank you so much, Miss Leslie.
I'm Lou Paschall. I'm the school social worker in Manchester City Schools, and our therapy dog is Daisy, and I am her handler. So She works with me most of the time.
Oh, sweet baby. Thank you, Miss Lou. Thank you for being here.
And my name is Randall Robinson. I am the Director of Student Services for Manchester City Schools. And I have been in schools and public education for this will be my 34th year.
That's awesome. Thank you, Mr. Randall. Thank y'all for being here. So I think I'm going to go ahead and start us off with our first question. What inspired you all to start a dog therapy program in a school setting?
We have an annual conference every year in the state where we all gather, share best practices, and about 4 years ago, I think, at the conference, they invited some folks to spend those 3 days with us, and they were therapy dog trainers. They were a therapy dog organization. So every session that you went to, every break that you had, there was this wonderful, calm presence that you could sit down next to, pet. Right. So it just really sparked an interest in me. And when I came back from the conference, I immediately shared with my director how nice it was. And his words were, I've always thought that would be a great idea for our district. And that's when the idea took off. And fortunately, there's 2 other people in the district that were a whole lot more passionate about it than I was. So that's how this all started.
Well, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that you guys were able to implement that into your schools. Something I do outside of, my schooling, I work at a veterinarian, at a veterinarian's office. So I've been doing that for the last 2 years. So I'm very, used to being around pets, used to being around dogs and cats. And I know that they can bring in that calming, that sense of, happiness. I love my job because I get to see puppies all day long. So I completely understand where you guys are coming from. Can you share a little bit more about any personal experiences that you guys had that made you realize that the power of dogs was helping y'all students?
When Leslie was answering, one of the things I wanted to add was there are a lot of different ways that districts do this. Mm-hmm. And so I think one of the things that Leslie pursued was an organization called Pet Partners, where volunteers bring in dogs and the volunteers, are not school employees. And that is one thing that we tried to do. There weren't any teams in our geographical area, so that didn't work out. But there are even the districts that we know that are doing therapy dog programs, they do it in a lot of different ways. But in terms of what would make us think that students would respond to that, it's honestly, it's not just our students, it's our students and our staff. Everybody,
Right.
unless, we have people that have allergies or are afraid of dogs, lots of people in the district are happy about it and feel like it is beneficial. And later we can kind of talk about, some of the things that we've seen in the research about like literacy support, impacts on your actual physical health when you're around animals, how it supports like emotional health.
Mm-hmm.
So those are all the kind of things that are our goals for the program.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking on goals, I know you said that it's different in every school system, everybody who has therapy dogs. What is the main goal of your dog therapy program in y'all's school?
The two that I feel like we really, of course, I'm a school social worker, so I'm always kind of with the social emotional.
Right.
But I would say really what we focus the most attention on is literacy,
Mm-hmm.
how therapy dogs can help students with building literacy skills, and also attendance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
So, I would say those two things. I mean, there's a lot of different impacts, but those two things for sure we're focusing on: literacy and attendance.
Hey, I know if there was a therapy dog or really any dog that I knew I'd get to see when I come to school, I would be there just about every day.
Yes.
How did you guys go about gaining approval and support from the school administration and from other staff about this program?
Well, our situation is a little bit unique. I say that, basically the stars aligned. We were definitely interested in having a therapy dog program, but
Right.
The dog that what we're going to say is our first dog, because we're definitely looking to expand. Our first dog was actually donated to be a therapy dog for the district. So we've done things differently the second time, preparing for the second time than we have the first time. But I would definitely say you cannot do something like this without buy-in from your district. You just can't. Your board has to be bought in. Your central office, your director of schools has to be bought in. I would say probably Randall, as a district administrator, can probably talk a little bit more about that, what's necessary in order to make that work.
Right. The part I'll add to that is, not only the buy-in in the schools and stuff. Honestly, the teachers and the students have been all for it from day one. But there's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that needs to go on to happen. And not only you need the buy-in, like I say, out of the district, but it's been huge. The community supports that are out there, that the community is behind it. We have parents in the parent organizations of the schools who are always contacting us like, what can we do to help in the therapy dog program? It's just wonderful. My child comes home talking about getting to read to the dog today at school, or the dog was in the library with them today.
Oh.
And so as the old saying goes, it takes a village, right? It takes the village. We need the community. We need the board. We need our directors. We need our school administration. But it takes everyone being on board to make this become very successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. To have dogs in there with people, I completely understand that you guys need, to get approval from everybody. But also, I think that's one of those things that people are like, we're going to have a dog. Let's get a dog in here.
Right. And I would say, you don't want to feel like you're making decisions solely on money or what's the worst case scenario or all those kinds of things, but you absolutely have to address those things.
Right.
You have to talk about things like liability and insurance and those kinds of things.
Right.
Really lay a foundation before you get ready to do this.
Yeah, there's a lot more to this. And we kind of found this out as honestly, we went into this blindly.
We did.
As Daisy was donated, and we're like, okay, so what do we do next? But there's lots of expense in insurance, right? Liability insurance. There's lots of expense in grooming. The dog has to have regular grooming. The dog has regular veterinarian visits. They have health bills just like a human. So there's a lot of moving pieces out there. I think as we first started, we didn't realize how many moving pieces there was associated.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I know you guys said that Daisy was donated to you guys, but do y'all know the type of training that she underwent before she was given to you guys?
She did not have any training before she came. She was a baby.
Daisy,
wow.
Daisy was 6 weeks old.
Oh my goodness.
When we got Daisy, she would fit almost in the palm of your hand.
I think she was 11 pounds, maybe.
Yeah, like 11
when
pounds.
I got her, she was 11 pounds.
Yeah.
So you guys have done her training completely on y'all.
Yeah.
Yes.
How did that go? Did you guys use an outside? Did y'all use like an outside training source?
Yeah.
Is this all in your own knowledge?
Yes. Well,
Combination.
I will say,
Right.
I went to class with Daisy since she was with me. And we do work with a trainer. We've actually worked with 2 trainers now, and we went through a series of classes. And I can tell you a little bit more about that if you would like to get into that. But what I say is I trained Daisy and Randall trained me, because Randall and I just know some of the things that and I had a dog growing up, but having a dog as a child and, you get an allowance for giving them their food and water is different. But I just know some of the things that I came in and asked Randall about. Some days were like, this is like, and I always say, if someone knew one thing about a dog, when I got Daisy, they knew more than what I did. So it has definitely a steep learning curve. But we had a lot of, we've had great trainers, and like I said, Randall has had a ton of knowledge about just having dogs his whole life. So we were in a really good position with being able to get everything in line.
Well, and you got her at a really good age where she was able to learn all of these skills that you needed her to learn. I know obviously there are dogs that learn a little bit later in their lives, but having them as a puppy, that's really kind of a key point there. So you guys, looks like y'all started right on the right track.
Well, and as soon as she was old enough to be in class, we were in class. Yeah. Like we took a puppy class. We took like a puppy 2.0.
Right.
The minute she was older, the minute she had her vaccinations and she was cleared with that, we were getting her in class. I'd say she's been in class every week for almost her whole life.
Awesome. So, you guys started right on the right field with her. We have clients come into the vet's office all the time. We tell them, get them started early on that training, because once they hit 2 years old and they have started to develop a habit, you are going to frustrate yourself trying to get them out of that habit. Yes. So you guys started right on the right track. You got her at 6 weeks, and seems like she's doing great. She's working hard.
She is. Yeah. And, we talked about all the support and all the work on the back end that had to happen. Daisy didn't actually get to come into our schools and actually work with our students until this January, till January.
January of this year. January of 2024.
Because
she was almost 2 years old.
Okay.
So,
almost.
So that time beforehand, she came to work with Lou every day, but she wasn't coming into our buildings while the students was there. So she was staying in the central office with all of our administrators and camping out with them while Lou did her work every day, and then she'd go back and pick her up. Right. So, we were all in agreement that we were not letting her into the building with students until everything was completed.
Right. Yeah. And that just shows it takes a long time to get these dogs trained and to get them put into a situation. And a lot of times they have dogs that come from outside training sources. So they've never been in the school. They've never met these handlers. They've never met these people. But you guys had a great opportunity to have her and get her used to her environment while also training her to be in said environment. So it seems like she has got a great foothold on where she is with you guys in y'all's school system, which is absolutely amazing.
Well, I said the one thing I've really learned in this, whenever you start with Daisy as a pup, a therapy dog is a marathon, is not a sprint.
Right. Absolutely. It takes, it takes years, and it takes work on her part and work on y'all's part.
Yes.
You guys have been putting in the work. You said that she's been in training, every week since you've had her?
Yes.
Right. That sounds, So can you guys describe what a typical session with the students and the therapy dog, what do those look like for you guys?
It can be a couple of different things. So I don't refer to myself as a therapist, but I do provide mental health support to students. So we've actually been doing some of that this morning. So I'll pull a student individually and I'll do a session. It's usually about 30 minutes. And Daisy will just sit in on that session as long as parents have given consent. Daisy does not work with anybody any student where parents have not given consent because of allergies and because of, fears of dogs, or because parents just don't want it. I mean, They don't have to do anything. This is definitely an optional thing. So she'll sit in with me with individual sessions. We've also done this semester quite a few library visits. Like I said, we're really wanting to support literacy. So we'll go to the library for 30, 45 minutes. I work with the librarian and we schedule with different classes. And we'll go in and we'll do, several different things. I usually try to give the students a job. Like I'll have 2 or 3 jobs when we start, like, can you give Daisy some water? I think she's thirsty. Can you put down her blanket for her to lay on? Just so they feel like they're a part of it. And then we'll, depending on, how feisty I think Daisy is that day, we will, we might do a story. We'll always do a story, but the order might be different. We'll do a story. We'll let them ask any number of questions that they want to ask. I had a student ask me the other day what Daisy's zodiac sign was. And then we'll do what we call her skills, where, she'll kind of show all the things that she can do. So, and then at the end, Daisy usually has gifts for them. We have some coloring sheets. We have, in the therapy dog world, trading cards are a huge deal. Okay. So she has trading cards with stickers. So those are kind of the things in the literacy visit. And then, and that might be either in a classroom or actually in the library. And then Leslie invited us a few weeks ago to provide support while students were getting flu shots. Okay. And she could tell you more about that, but we just kind of hung out, and the students could talk to Daisy, or staff that were coming to get flu shots, they could pet on Daisy before their shot. But I'll let you talk a little bit.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. All 3 of our buildings had the flu shot schedule. We partner with our county health department. They come in and give the vaccinations, and we utilize our school nurse's office. So it's convenience for the parents. It's a little bit stressful for the students. They're there without mommy and daddy. Parents have consented for them to have a shot. They've gotten the information. So Daisy was available for one of our schools. So when the kids came to the nurse's office, they got to sit outside with Daisy until it was their turn. So they had some time before to visit with her, to pet, to calm. When they were finished, they could stay and sit with Daisy as long as they felt like they needed to. Right. And for the one school where she was available, it was a huge success. There were no tears. Everything went smoothly. The next school we traveled to, we had a few more students, but Daisy already had a reading appointment and she was not there. And the whole climate of the flu shot clinic was very different.
I'm sure it was.
It was very
tense.
Stressful. The kids were very tense. So it was quite evident that she made a difference in them. I'm sure their cortisol levels came way, way down.
Right. And I think that's awesome that you guys are able to use therapy dogs in many different scenarios, because I know a lot of people have that stigma. Oh, it's a therapy dog. She's just here if I'm upset. But you can use it as incentive. You can use her as, comfort, as help whenever people need it. And especially for children who are still learning, still growing, still needing to latch onto those comfort items in the age that they're at. Having that therapy dog is just a great opportunity for them to also be able to learn how to kind of get through life. Getting a shot away from mom and dad is scary. I don't like doing it. I'm 22 years old.
Well, and I'll say, I think the reason that our therapy dog team in particular has that perspective is because that is our district's view of school social work, number one, and our student services team. I'm so proud of our team, and that's everybody here and several more people, because we just have like a really cohesive team, and everybody knows what their job is, and that's fine. But when somebody's up to their neck, it doesn't matter whose job it is. Everybody works together. And then the other part is, districts use school social workers in different ways, but I guess I have a broad view of it. And I just feel like there's not a whole lot going on in these buildings that cannot relate to school social work for me. So if a student's getting a flu shot and they're going to be upset or they're going to be scared, and we can come and Daisy can be helpful with that, to me, that's removing a barrier to their education. And that's what we need to be doing. Now, is a flu shot really a school social work thing? Not necessarily, but removing barriers to education is. And so anything that we can be doing, we've gone on field trips, Daisy and I, with students. And if that makes the field trip better, for students, or makes them, less any number of things, then we want to do that. So we do plug her into a lot of variety in our district.
Right. Absolutely. I know you guys said that this is your first dog, but y'all are looking into getting more therapy dogs for your program. Is that correct?
Yes. We hope spring 2025 is,
hey, I'll keep my fingers crossed for you guys.
Yes, we've been working on it. And that's, another thing that I would say to districts that are interested, like pretty much the minute you think that you're interested, you need to be working on it right then. Because whether you get your own dog from a puppy and you train it up, or whether you get a dog from an organization that trains, which they're out there, either way, it's a pretty long runway to actually get that dog ready to be in a school.
Right. It's a very long process. So even if you want it so bad right now, you're still going to have to might as well go ahead and get started.
Correct.
All righty. So I know you guys said that y'all use Daisy for your staff as well as the students at all age levels, but have y'all noticed a trend in what age groups or grade levels seem to benefit more from having Daisy with them?
I'll say this, and I think Randall's thinking he's going to want to contribute to this, but Daisy is about 53 pounds. So she's a good size little dog. So in a sense, probably some of the younger ones, she might be a little bit too big for them.
Right.
Our next dog is probably going to be bigger than Daisy. So our next dog is going to be in an elementary school. But that will even be a different setup. So, Daisy's with me as the school social worker. Our next dog is going to actually be with our related arts teachers.
Okay.
So that dog will be a little bit bigger, but will be with students in like really active situations. Mm-hmm. So I think the size, and we haven't touched on this either, but the dogs that we have chosen, one of the really chief factors is that they say there's no such thing as 100% hypoallergenic, but she is as close to hypoallergenic as you can possibly be. We cannot guarantee that a student would not have an allergic reaction, but this is about as good as it can get. And the same with our second dog. So those are definitely considerations when you're bringing a dog into a district.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to say impact-wise and what I see, Daisy, especially with younger students who have a lot of apprehension with school and some anxieties associated with school, I see a big difference in those children when Daisy is around.
Yep.
Right. Okay.
Now, on the alternative, Lou and her office and where they're kind of stationed out of is at a middle school.
Right.
And the one thing that I do notice when I'm over there, if Daisy's happen to be around in some middle school, there doesn't seem to be near the inappropriate behaviors out of the middle school students if Daisy happens to be around in the room. They just kind of disappear naturally on their own.
Right.
And we all know how middle school students can be at times.
Oh, absolutely.
It just seems like if Daisy's just around where they're at, it seems to at least curtail some typical middle school behaviors that you don't want to see.
Right.
And I want to go back. When I said Daisy might be too big for some of the really little ones, it's not that she's fantastic with all age kids. I mean, we've even had, employees that have had babies and brought their baby. I mean, she's wonderful with them. Right. But I think it takes maybe a little bit longer for the little bitties to kind of be sure, because she is, bigger than me.
Yeah, when this dog is towering over you.
So, yeah.
They can be a little bit intimidating by her.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. When you're that low to the ground and there's an animal, and not everybody has pets in their homes. I've always grown up with dogs in my house, but I've friends and other people that I've met who have never had a pet before. So it might be a little bit daunting for them to come in and be like, this is a really big animal and I'm supposed to be friends with it and it's supposed to be cool, but I've never been near one before. So I completely understand how some of the littles can have a little bit of trouble kind of connecting with Daisy on that front level, but I'm sure she's doing fantastic and getting everybody to love her.
Well, that's a whole nother, that's another part of this whole thing is students who haven't had dogs, and I get conflicted about it sometimes because our students will ask if they can pet her. And I'm like, well, yes, she belongs to everybody, but I'm glad that they asked. That is a good thing. That's a good skill for them to develop out in the world is to, ask before you approach somebody's dog.
Right.
But, one thing we haven't touched on is in our particular district, we have a pretty significant number of students that come from Spanish speaking families.
Okay.
And there can be, some cultural differences in their relationship and their experience with dogs. And so that is something too. So they might be a little tentative and like, I just don't, this is not something I've experienced before. I just don't know about that. So we're even when we have consent, we're very careful in introducing students. We have tons of books about dogs and therapy dogs because some of it is just the education of it to begin with.
Right. Oh, absolutely. I think, and I'm really glad that you guys are also helping to teach consent to children, because that is such a big thing. They go out into the world and, maybe they're thinking, oh, well, we have a dog at my school. This dog is probably friendly too. And the unfortunate reality is that most dogs are not going to be friendly to people that they don't know when they're out of their comfort zone. So it's always good to teach children. Let's ask before we pet. It's an animal. At the end of the day, it is an animal. Right. So I really like that you guys are also, enforcing, not really enforcing, but encouraging that kind of behavior in your school with Daisy, even knowing that she's fine, she's been through the training, she's done everything that she can, she's going to be perfectly fine around these people. The students don't know that. How could they?
Well, and sometimes it's just a logistical thing. Like if you have a teacher whose kids have just all washed their hands for lunch,
right?
You don't particularly want them petting a dog right before they go to the cafeteria. So some of that is communication with teachers, and I call that a walking pet when we're in the hallway, and you can just hear, when the kids see her, and, we love you, Daisy, and all this kind of thing. But it might not be a time when they need to pet, and it might be a time when they need to stay in line and they need to pay attention. And so we try to be really respectful of what teachers have going on too.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I know. I'm sure for them that can also be like, now the entire class is all rowdy and oh no, there's a dog in the hall.
Yes. Yes.
But I'm sure that also kind of goes towards, everybody's learning, and now they're learning how to, manage their classrooms when there's a dog available. And that can help them at home when they're at home at the store with their moms and their dads. They're not having to catch a running child who's now running towards this animal because they've learned these skills in school, which I think is just a great program, honestly. I know we've already kind of gone through some of the positive impacts that Daisy has had. I know you guys talked specifically about literacy and then with y'all's flu shots that y'all just did. But do you have any success stories of how the program has helped students emotionally or academically?
I would definitely say the flu shot situation was a big success story. I think for one thing, just the way the students have just taken to it, and like I said, they all know that they don't know me. They don't know my name.
Right.
And when before we were even in school full time, we would be out, walking like in the park or in the greenway. And if we saw a kid that went to one of our schools, they knew we were getting Daisy. They had maybe seen Daisy on like a really, limited, controlled basis, but they will shout out in the park, "That's our school dog." So, those kinds of things. We have done some grants connected to Daisy, and we are taking data. So I definitely think we are going to be seeing some data that shows different impacts there. And there are studies that show that, but I'm just saying specifically to our district.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we don't have a measurement of school climate, but Daisy's also been out in our community during the summer. Lou has taken her to the public library for reading times. So some of our same students are participating there, and it helps our community be more cohesive with our school and understand the importance of literacy and how we're trying to accomplish that. And so I think it's brought the community together better to support us. I mean, Lou's done a beautiful job branding Daisy. She has her own Facebook page. So everybody knows Daisy, and everybody knows that she's Manchester City Schools therapy dog. So for the community engagement, I think it's been very positive.
Well, absolutely. And it sounds like you guys have got your own school mascot, which is awesome. What are some challenges that you guys have faced so far in running a therapy dog program in a school setting?
I guess on the work side, and which a lot of people might think about. So all of our releases for the Children Interact, they are active releases. We don't do passive releases, right? So a lot of times in schools are really notorious to send out we're going to have a therapy dog. If you don't want your child to participate, then fill this out and send it back in. Right. So you would only get them back for those who didn't want. Well, 99% of the time, guess what? The kids never gave that to the parent. So all of our consents are active. We send out and they have to mark yes or no and sign it and return it. We have that physical piece with us. That takes a lot of work to keep up with who do I have releases on that say yes, who do I have releases on that say no. And the other thing we find is it goes home, it comes back signed no. Daisy's doing something, the child is, we have to have alternative things for those children to do that don't get to interact with her. Well, then the children go home and say, I want to interact with the dog. So then we have requesting new releases that says yes, that comes in, has to supersede the old one. So there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work on the behind the scenes to make this work.
Yeah. And I'm sure, especially, with kids going home being like, well, my entire class got to play with Daisy and I didn't get, and that it just kind of keeps this revolving door of having really to keep paperwork and make sure that the students that are interacting with her have been approved to interact with her.
Correct.
And really in any setting, but especially in a school setting, that's extremely important. You want to make sure that your students are safe and that the parents feel safe sending their kids to school. That's and, if they're, maybe mom has a fear of dogs. She doesn't like them personally, but she finds out that her kid went to school and touched a dog that she did not give any kind of approval for. That would put a really bad light on the school, but also on dog therapy programs in general.
Right.
Yes.
So I completely understand.
I think one of the other barriers, while we did have total support from the top down, we don't have a budget line for our therapy dog program. So any of the funding that's needed, and there is a lot when you're talking about a therapy dog, we have to find those funding sources. So fortunately, we work well together. Lou's a great grant writer, and we've had lots of support, but that can be a huge barrier when you're looking to start a program like this.
I think it's also really good, like you said, that you've been taking her out in the community, taking her over the summer to public libraries. So the community is also getting to see what good having a therapy dog can do in the schools for their children. And hopefully that will also help, bolster some of those donations to help you guys towards getting more dogs for a bigger dog therapy program. What is one thing, I guess this can be for Daisy specifically, that keeps her comfortable and not stressed during her sessions?
She's asleep over there right now. Mom has worked her probably a little bit too hard this morning. Treats, she has to have treats. I would say for me, she definitely, I can plan, all the things that I want to do in a day, but just logistically, she needs to go out. She needs to eat. She needs water. She needs potty breaks, and she's still really a baby. She's 2 years and 7 months old. So I have to be mindful of, even though I can do a bunch of sessions back to back, she can't. And I probably don't need to be doing it either, honestly. But that is something that, even when we schedule meetings or schedule presentations, it's like, if they ask us to present, well, we're not going to do 2 right back to back because we need to have a little bit of time for her to have a break. And, and like the therapy dog organizations will say that therapy dogs should work about 2 hours a day. Now, she comes with me and she stays with me all day, but she doesn't really work, the entire day, just nonstop. So I would just definitely say, taking in mind what her needs are going to be. And I think probably, I'm not an expert on this, but I think in situations where people have had therapy dogs or other kind of dogs and there was an incident, I'm nearly positive that probably something had not been met in the dog's needs and the dog had just had enough. And that doesn't make it okay for a dog to, bite or do anything like that. But just safety wise, we just have to make sure all her needs are met, because we can't have her express those needs in a way that's not safe for students or staff.
Well, and that's how you get a reactive dog, is by not having them, if their needs aren't met, they're going to do the only thing that they have in their power to do. They don't have opposable thumbs and they can't talk to us and say, hey, I need a moment. Can I please go pee?
Yeah.
The only thing they have to do is bark and bite.
Well, and also just like being like paying a lot of attention to how students are like, they would love to hug her, they would love to kiss her, but she does not like that.
Right.
She doesn't like her paws touched.
Right.
There are certain, so I have to really, like, I don't need to be in a conversation over here with Randall with kids. I don't need to let them surround her.
Right.
I know, and we had to practice a lot of those things in our class. We had to practice a lot of people petting her at one time. And some of those things she has to learn and get better at.
Right.
But I'm always telling the kids, like, do not surround her. You have to leave her a way out. If you back her into a corner,
right.
Right. She only has so many ways to get out, and she can't.
Right.
Can't
Well, and
verbalize.
that's extremely important that you also, as her handler, that you are advocating for her, because then she'll know, it's okay. She's got my back. There's a lot of kids near me. I'm uncomfortable. But instead of her taking that step to have to fix that problem herself with a bark or with a bite, she knows that you are going to step in and move them away from her if she needs it, or get her out of a place that she might feel uncomfortable. So advocating for dogs is just as important as advocating for your students, because they're all living creatures and they all need a little bit of help. Yeah. So it's really good to have.
And you can see sometimes on the kid's face when you're like, she doesn't like hugs, it kind of, hurts their feelings a little bit, right. But that just is what it is. Right. So. But you can go back in and say, now, she really doesn't want to be hugged, but you can pet her this way, and she really loves that, or she really loves having her belly.
She'll shake your hand.
Yeah, or she'll shake her hand. So, yeah, that's a big
that
part
redirection is extremely important, because I can see how, that could make students upset. Like, oh, but I really, that's what she's here for. I want to love on her. But
and especially because, like, for the research that we've done about this, one of the things in the research is that the students who are going to gravitate toward her the most are probably the most emotionally vulnerable. So, and I have 100% seen that. The students that are always, they really need her. They need to, be around her and be able to pet her and all that. So, I do try to be really careful with certainly, how I tell them she doesn't want to be hugged or she doesn't want to be kissed. Right. They're already kind of, fragile anyway.
Right. Absolutely. So I know we've talked a little bit about kind of all the things that you have done with Daisy and how you have kind of trained her and how you have been trained to work with her. But how do other teachers or other staff, how have they been trained to work with Daisy in the school?
Kind of the framework that you gave at the board meeting of what she is and what she isn't.
Yes. So I think that was one of the first things that we felt like going in. We needed to lay a really good foundation with our school board, the principals, and everything in school is we needed to have a group or a mutual understanding with everybody. What is a therapy dog, and what is our expectations? What is our goals, and what are we wanting to get out of having a therapy dog? But at the same time, we had to kind of lay the groundwork is what is a therapy dog, what is not a therapy dog.
Right.
So we were not, if we have a student who may be having a violent outburst or a temper tantrum, and they're throwing and they're kicking and they're biting and they're hitting, that's not an appropriate thing for a therapy dog to be involved in.
Right.
So we kind of had to lay those foundational pieces with both teachers and administrators and stuff in our school. Now, at the same time, we do have some students that at times just have an emotional setback. They just feel overwhelmed and they just start to kind of shut down because of the feeling of being overwhelmed. We have found that if Daisy comes by to visit and they get a little 5-10 minute visit with Daisy, they do seem to gravitate back to getting their emotions under control and being back on task, doing the things they need to do.
Right.
And so in those situations, we think it's quite appropriate.
Right.
So we kind of had to try to have a common language understanding with everyone, make sure everyone was on board, understand this situations we'll use Daisy and this is a situation we will not.
And you were asking about success stories, and I didn't think about this at the time, but at our middle school, I walked out in the hallway one day with Daisy, and there was one of our students who is known to have, emotional.
He's disorganized, emotional breakdown.
And sitting on the floor, and I said, what's going on? Well, somebody took my backpack and this and that and whatever. And so Daisy and I just stood there for a few minutes, and, gradually that student, started to get it back together. And, I said, what do you need to be doing next? And we just, it was maybe 3 minutes, maybe. But we kind of hung with that student and walked that student to class. And I was at the door, and the teacher is a relatively young new teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say, I did not go to teacher school, so I try not to tell teachers what to do or talk about teaching or anything like that. But I did say to that teacher, I said, this student just, needed a moment. I'm not trying to tell you how to run your classroom, but if you could just let it go, because that student was late. And they did. But otherwise, that would have been a whole eruption.
It would have become a much bigger situation. Derailed that student's day, and maybe we could have gotten it back on track and maybe not. So that was definitely it was sort of it was a behavior support, but not like Randall was saying, we're not going to be a part of, any kind of
physical behaviors,
we just can't. But yes, emotional things, trying to kind of, if we can kind of see things are about to go off the rails, we can kind of try to redirect and get things kind of de-escalate.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's also a learning curve. You guys are learning as you go.
The teachers needed to know was that Daisy is an additional tool for them. Right. This was not something that was an expectation for you include in any of your lesson planning. This is just an extra tool for you to access as you're comfortable and as you see the need.
Yes.
Right.
And also understanding there's, I'm one woman and we have one dog. There's teachers that would like for us to be in their class every single day, and we just can't.
Right.
So, which is why we're trying to expand. Because the moment we hit the door the first day, we were already at capacity of what we could do, because everybody needs her to be around, which is a good problem. But
right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So all those kinds of expectations have been discussed.
Right. Okay. Absolutely. Now, would you guys have any type of advice for maybe any other school system or school setting that wants to bring therapy dogs in, but is also having trouble with those limited resources, with those limited fundings?
Reach out to someone that has a therapy dog. And if you want some information, we are happy for you to contact us. We, Franklin Special School District in our state, which is about an hour's drive for us, we spent an on-site visit there. They got multiple phone calls, texts, emails, but anything came up, they were our go-to, and they were extremely helpful.
Absolutely.
And I will say for anybody, and even you start with a pup. So we were very, very fortunate in the breeder donated Daisy at 6 weeks. If that donation took place, that breeder normally charges $3,000 to $5,000 a piece for these dogs.
Oh, wow.
Right? So you got a lot of upfront cost.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking at, okay, I'm going to bypass the puppy stage and we're not going to be the ones doing the training. We're going to go out and purchase a dog in around here. There's some organizations who train. There's also what's referred to as facility dogs around here. You're easily looking at $8,000 to $15,000.
Yes.
And then the ongoing cost on top of that initial cost. So try to make sure everybody knows, they understand that those financial commitments can be small if you have a dog donated in the beginning, but over time, the cost of training, vet visits, and groomings, that by the time we got to 2 years, guess what? We spent as much as if we had went out and got a dog that was 2 years old and trained to be a therapy dog. We had spent the same amount. It wasn't really any cheaper. It was just, I think it was a great learning experience for us. And I will encourage anyone, if this is going to be your first time, starting with a puppy so that you understand every step and every stage along the way.
Right.
It's probably your best route. Because when you go out and purchase a dog that's already had the training, you don't understand all the steps leading up to that point.
Right.
And so I tell any of the school districts that contact me, your first, start with a puppy. Once you've understood all the steps and the stages and the different trainings and the needs that are involved there, then move on to a dog that comes to you that's already trained, because now you have that knowledge base of all the steps that it took to get there.
I will say, just general to anybody thinking about this, this is not taking your dog to work.
No.
That is not what this is. There's so much more to it. Now, some districts might have someone who has a dog, who has a temperament, and they go through the training and all that is fine. But if you look at it as just taking your dog to work, you're going to have big problems.
Right.
So I would just discourage people, yes, it's warm and fuzzy and happy and hugs and rainbows and all that. It is all that. Mm-hmm. But if you look at it as taking your dog to work, you're going to miss a whole lot of things that need to be in place before you do that. It's kind of like, you see people out in the community and you'll go somewhere, some business where dogs usually don't go when somebody brings their dog in. And I would dearly love to take Daisy everywhere I go. But I know that when I do that, it ruins it for everybody because somebody has a bad experience and then you get to where, you can't take them anywhere. So I think the same thing about therapy dogs. If you treat it as it's taking my dog to work, something bad's going to happen and it's going to turn your whole district off to it for a long time. So you have to have a lot of positive experiences on the front end.
Right. Absolutely.
To keep people bought in.
And at the end of the day, these dogs are working dogs. They have to be treated as working dogs, not as your pet. Like you said, you're not just taking your dog to work with you for the day. This dog is a working dog. That is what they are here for. But we are actually kind of starting to wrap up. I've got one last question for you guys. And then if there's anything else y'all would like to add at the end, please feel free. I would love to hear it. How do you guys see the role of therapy dogs evolving in the future?
Okay, so I listened to a podcast out of Colorado, I think, as we were formulating this. Well, and I'll back up. We mentioned Franklin Special. Dyersburg has had therapy dogs for years and years and years and years and years. Franklin Special has too. I think Franklin Special learned from Dyersburg. Okay. I think Dyersburg mentored Franklin Special. Franklin Special mentored us, and Franklin Special has dogs in every single one of their schools. And it is their director of schools, Dr. Snowden, is extremely bought into it. And so they have a dog in every single one of their schools. Mm-hmm. So I listened to this podcast in Colorado and it was kind of the same attitude out there. And I think what was said was, we don't open a school without a therapy dog. Like it's become such a part of their school experience that they just, like I know when I worked in another district, there was a lady that Leslie knows. And when they were building a school, this lady would, go through all the furniture they would need for a special ed classroom. Same thing with a therapy dog. It's just an integral part of their district. And I think it's still somewhat new here in Tennessee, but we have districts call us. We've had several call us. Our state department has just done a pilot grant to get dogs started in 5 schools in the state. So I think that's where it's headed. I hope that's where it's headed, is that we can have that many good experiences that schools will really feel like it's something beneficial and more schools will do it. And I would dearly love for us to have a dog in every single one of our schools before it's all over. We'll see what happens, but that's where I think it's going to go, as long as people can build their programs responsibly, get really good data. That is a big part of it, to show the impact and for people to have those really positive experiences. Right.
Absolutely. Well, I think what you guys have done with your school district is absolutely wonderful. And I hope that other school districts in Tennessee are able to, use you guys. I know you said that Dyersburg mentored Franklin and then they mentored you. So I hope that in the future, you guys are going to be able to mentor other school systems so that they can also begin to implement therapy dogs into their practice, because it seems like it's something that can bring a lot of great positive effects, not just to the school, but to the children, to the staff, and to your community as well, because you guys are doing all of that outreach. Y'all are doing all of that work. Thank you guys so much for sitting and talking with me. I have had an absolute blast getting to listen to it. It's absolutely wonderful. But I hope you guys have a great rest of your week.
Same to you. Same to you. Did y'all have anything you want to add before she lets us go?
Yeah, please.
Just kind of playing off of Lou right there. I think the most important thing is, and one of the first things I think went on when we had employees starting to know that Daisy was around and was going to become a thing, I would have employees that I would be in the schools and say, "Oh, I can't wait till y'all have Daisy because I want to bring my dog to school."
Oh, yeah.
and so it took some work and effort on our part, educating our staff into, this is not bring your dog to school. This is this dog is working with students who may be struggling educationally, that may be struggling emotionally, that this dog is working to actually facilitate enhancing their educational program. And it took us a while to get that message across.
And that's been a deliberate decision on our part. I'm a district-wide employee, so I go to all of our schools.
Right.
I think a classroom dog is fantastic. However, I'm a district-wide employee. Our next dog is going to be with related arts teachers that see every student in the building. If you have a classroom dog, that dog only works with that class that year.
Right.
So I think it's wonderful. I would love for every classroom to have one. But if you cannot do that, then you're trying to have as many students in the building have that experience with that dog, then you probably don't want to have classroom teachers.
Right.
That may not be the route that you want to go. So that's kind of, another rationale behind that too.
Absolutely. It just shows that there is years of training that go not into just Daisy, not into just the dogs, but into the staff as well, because you have to create an environment that allows you to have therapy dogs. Because you need that education. You need people to understand, this is a working dog. There are many different ways that we can do this, but this is how we are implementing it. So these are the steps that we have to take. And I think y'all are on the right track. Y'all are doing absolutely awesome.
Let's see if I can get Daisy. She may want to say bye if we can get Daisy.
Yes, please. If you're able.
She's right here with us, but there we go.
Hi,
can you stand up?
Can you stand up?
Oh my goodness. Oh, she is so stinking cute.
Can you say I'm gonna wave bye to everyone?
Bye, y'all.
I give you 2 paws. I give everybody 2 paws up.
It's a good girl.
Thank y'all so much. Y'all have a good one, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to listen to our podcast, brought to you by the Smart Connections podcast from the Smart Center at the University of Memphis, as well as the Pathways to Behavioral Health Careers Project. If you or anyone you know needs any information from the Smart Center, please contact us at 901-678-1636 or email us at smartcenter@memphis.edu. You can also learn more about us at our website, memphis.edu/smartcenter.